back to that far day, any far day, and from its dim, granted ground and its things to the sky. The eyes raised and back again, raised again and back again, and the feet going nowhere, only somehow always home. In the morning, out from home, in the evening, back home again. Up bright and early that day. I was young then, feeling awful, and out. Mother hanging out of the window in her nightdress, weeping and waving. Nice fresh morning. Bright too early as so often. Feeling really awful. Very violent. Sky would soon darken and rain fall and go on falling all day till evening, then blue and sun again a second, then night. Feeling all this, how violent and the kind of day, I stopped and turned. So, back with bowed head, on the lookout for snail, slug, or worm. Great love in my heart, too, for all things still and rooted. Bushes, boulders, and the like, too numerous to mention. Even the flowers of the field. Not for the world, when in my right senses, would I ever touch one to pluck it. Or as a bird now, or a butterfly, fluttering about and getting in my way. All moving things getting in my path. A slug now getting under my feet. No mercy. Not that I would go out of my way to get at them, no. Often at a distance they seem quite still, and the next minute they were upon me. Birds, with my piercing sight I've seen flying so high and so far off, they seemed at rest. And a moment later they were all about me. Crows have done this. Ducks are perhaps the worst. To be suddenly stamping and stumbling in the midst of ducks or hens, any class of poultry. Few things are worse. Nor would I go out of my way to avoid such things when avoidable. No. I will simply not go out of my way. Though I have never in my life been on my way anywhere. Not simply on my way. And in this way I have gone through great thickets, bleeding, deep into bogs, water too, even the sea in some moods, and been carried out of my course or driven back, so as not to drown. And that's perhaps the way I shall die at last, if they don't catch me. I mean drowned. Or on fire. Yes, perhaps that's how I shall do it at last. Walking furious headlong into fire and dying burned to bits. Then I raised my eyes and saw my mother still in the window waving. Waving me back or on, I don't know, or just waving. Sad, helpless love. And I heard faintly her cries. The window frame was green, pale, and the house wall grey, and my mother white, and so thin I could see past her into the dark of the room. And on all that full the not long risen sun, and all small because of the distance, very pretty really, the whole thing, I remember it. The old grey, and then the thin green surround, and the thin white against the dark. If only she could have stayed still and let me look at it. No, for once in my life I wanted to stand and look at something I couldn't with her there, waving and fluttering and swaying in and out of the window as though she were doing exercises. For all I know, she might have been. Not bothering about me at all. No tenacity of purpose. That's another thing I didn't like about her. 1 week it would be exercises, the next prayers and Bible reading, the next gardening, the next playing the piano and singing. That was awful. And then just lying around, resting, always changing. Oh, nothing mattered to me. I was always out. But let me get on with this day I have hit on to begin with, and the other will have done just as well. Yes, on with it, out of my way, and on to the next. Enough of my mother for the moment. For a time then, all well, no trouble, no birds at me. Nothing across my path except, in the great distance, a white horse, followed by a boy, or it might have been a small man or woman. This is the only completely white horse I remember. What I believe the Germans call a skimmer. Oh, I was very quick as a boy, picked up a lot of hard knowledge. Skimmer. Nice word for an English speaker. The sun was full upon it as shortly before on my mother, and it seemed to have a red band or stripe running down its side. I thought perhaps a belly band, perhaps the horse was being taken somewhere to be harnessed to a trap or such like. It crossed my path a long way off, then vanished behind greenery, I suppose. All I noticed was the sudden appearance of the horse, then disappearance. It was bright white with the sun on it. I'd never seen such a horse, though often heard of them. I never saw another. White, I must say, has always affected me strongly. All white things, sheets, walls, and so on. Even flowers. And then just white. The thought of white. Without more. But let me get on with this day and get it over. All well then for a time, just the violence and then this white horse. When suddenly I flew into most savage rage, really blinding. Why this sudden rage, I really do not know. These sudden rages, they made my life a misery. Many other things too have done this. My sore throat, for example, I've never known what it is to be without a sore throat. And the rages were the worst. Like a great wind suddenly rising inside. No, I can't describe. It wasn't the violence getting worse in any case, nothing to do with that. Some days I will be feeling violent all day, never have a rage. Other days quite quiet for me and have 4 or 5. No, there's no accounting for it. There's no accounting for anything. For a mind like the one I always had, always on the alert against itself. There was a time I tried to get relief by beating my head against something, but I gave it up. The best thing I found was to start running. Perhaps I should mention here that I was a very slow walker. I didn't dally or loiter in any way, just walked very slowly. Little short steps in the feet, very slow through the air. On the other hand, I must have been quite one of the fastest runners the world has ever seen over a short distance. 5 or 10 yards in a second I was there. I could not go on at that speed. Not for breathlessness. It was mental. All is mental. Figments. Now, the jog trot, on the other hand, I could no more do that than I could fly. No, with me all was slow, and then these flashes or gushes. Vent the pent. That was one of those things I used to say to myself over and over as I went along. Vent the pent. Vent the pent. Fortunately, my father died when I was a boy. Otherwise, I might have been a professor. He had his heart set on it. Oh, a very fair scholar I was, too. No thought, but a great memory. One time I told him about Milton's cosmology. Way up in the mountains we were, resting against a huge rock, looking out to sea. That impressed him greatly. Love, too, often in my thoughts when a boy, but not a great deal compared to other boys. Kept me awake, I found. Never loved anyone, I think. I'd remember. Except in my dreams. And there it was animals. Dream animals, oh, not what you see walking about the country. I couldn't describe them. Lovely creatures they were. White. Mostly. Perhaps in a way it's a pity. A good woman might have been the making of me. I might be sprawled in the sun now, sucking my pipe, patting the bottoms of the third generation, looked up to and respected, wondering what there was for dinner, instead of stravaiging the same old roads and all weathers. I was never much of a one for new ground. No, I regret nothing. All I regret is having been born. Dying such a long, tiresome business I always found. But let me get on now from where I left off. The white horse and the rage. No connection, I suppose. Well, after the white horse and the rage, I don't know. Just on. And then, I suppose, the slow turn, wheeling more and more to the one or other hand, till facing home, then home. Ah, my father and mother, to think they are probably in paradise. They were so good. Let me go to hell, that's all I ask, and go on cursing them there, and they look down and hear me. Ha! That might take some of the shine off their bliss. Yes, I believe all their blather about the life to come. It cheers me up. And unhappiness like mine, there's no annihilating that. I was mad, of course, and still am, but harmless. I passed for harmless, that's a good one. Not, of course, that I was really mad, just strange, a little strange. And with each passing year, a little stranger. There can be few stranger creatures than me going about at the present day. My father, did I kill him too, as well as my mother? Perhaps in a way I did. Oh, I can't go back in that now. The questions rise up on me as I go along, leaving me very confused. Ah, breaking up I am. Suddenly they are there. No, they float up out of an old depth and hover and linger before they die away. Questions that when I was in my right mind would not have survived 1 second, but atomized they would have been before as much as formed, atomized. In twos often they came, hard, one upon the other thus. How can I go on another day? And then how did I ever go on another day? And did I kill my father? And then did I ever kill anyone? To the general from the particular, I suppose you might say. Question and answer, too, in a way very handling. I strive with them as best I can, quickening my step when they come on, tossing my head from side to side and up and down, staring agonizedly at this and that, increasing my murmurs to a scream. These are helps. But it should not be necessary. Ah, something is wrong here. If it was the end, I would not so much mind. How often have I said in my life before some new awful thing, it is the end, and it was not the end. And yet, the end cannot be far off now. I shall fall as I go along, and stay down, or lie, curled up for the night as usual among the rocks, and before morning be gone. Oh, I know that I too shall cease and be as when I was not yet, only all over, instead of being in store. That makes me happy. Often now my murmur falters and dies, and I weep for happiness as I go along, and for the love of this old earth that has carried me so long, and whose uncomplainingness will soon be mine. Just under the surface I shall be, altogether at first, then separate and drift through all the earth, and then perhaps, in the end, through a cliff into the sea. Something of me. A ton of worms to an acre. That's a wonderful thought. A ton of worms. I believe it. Where did I get it? From a dream? Or a book read in a nook when a boy? Or a word overheard as I went along? Or in me all along and kept under till it could give me joy? Oh, these are the horrid thoughts I have to contend with in the way I have just said. Now, Is there nothing to add to this day with the white horse and white mother in the window, before I pass on to another day at a later time? Anything to add before I pass on in time, skipping hundreds and even thousands of days in the way I couldn't at the time, but had to get through somehow, until I came to the one I'm coming to now? No, nothing. All is gone, but mother in the window, the violence, rage, and rain. So, on to this second day and get it over and out of my way and on to the next. What happens now is I am set upon and pursued by a family or tribe, I don't know, of stoats. Most extraordinary thing. I think they were stoats. Indeed, if I may say so, I was fortunate to get off with my life. Anyone else would have been bitten and bled to death. Perhaps such white, like a rabbit. I know I could never think, but if I could have and had then, I would have just lain down and let myself be destroyed like the rabbit does. But let me start, as always, with the morning and the getting out. When a day comes back, whatever the reason, its morning and its evening too are there, though in themselves quite unremarkable. The going out and the coming home. There's a remarkable thing I find. So up then in the grey of dawn, very weak and shaky after an atrocious night, little dreaming what lay in store, out and off. What time of year? I really do not know. Does it matter? Not wet really, but dripping. Everything dripping. The day might rise, did it know? Drip, drip all day long. No sun, no change of light. Dim all day, and still, not a breath. Till night. Then black, and a little wind. I saw some stars as I neared home. But I was hardly down the stairs and out into the air when the stick fell from my hands and I sank down onto my knees on the ground and then forward on my face, most extraordinary thing. And after a little over on my back. I could never lie on my face for any length of time, much as I loved it, but made me feel sick. And lay there half an hour perhaps, with my arms along my sides, the palms of my hands against the pebbles, and my eyes wide open, straying over the sky. Now, was this my first experience of this kind? That is the question that immediately assails one. Falls I had had in plenty, of the kind after which, unless a limb broken, you pick yourself up and go on cursing God and man. Oh, very different from this. But so much life gone from knowledge, how know when all began. All the variants of the one, that one by one their venom staling, follow one upon another all life long till you succumb. So that in some ways even olden things each time are first things. No two breaths the same, all are going over and over, all once and never more. Over, over. There's a soft place in my heart for all that is over. No, for the being over. I love the word. Words have been my only loves, not many. Often all day long as I went along, I would be saying it. And sometimes I would be saying, Vero, oh, Vero. Oh, but for those awful fidgets I've always had, I would have spent my life in a big, empty, echoing room with a big old pendulum clock, just listening and dozing. The case open so that I could see the swinging, my eyes moving to and fro, lead weights dangling lower and lower, till I got up out of my chair and wound them up again once a week. The third day was the look I got from the roadman. Suddenly I see that now. A ragged old brute, bent double down in the ditch, leaning on his spade or whatever it was, leering round and up at me from under the brim of his slouch. A red mouth. How it is, I wonder I saw him at all. That's more like it. The day I saw the look I got from Balf, I went in terror of him as a child. Now he is dead, and I resemble him. But let us pass on from these old scenes and come to these and my reward. Then it will not be as now, day after day, on, out, round, back, in, like leaves turning or torn out and thrown, trampled away, for a long unbroken time without before or after, light or dark, from or towards or at. The old half-knowledge of when and where gone and of what, but kinds of things still, all at once, all going, till nothing. There never was anything, never can be. Life and death, all nothing, that kind of thing. Except a voice, dreaming and droning on all round. That is something. A voice that was once in your mouth. Well, once out on the road and free of the property, what then? I really do not know. The next thing I found myself up in the bracken, lashing about with a stick, making the drops fly, and cursing filthy language, using the same words over and over. I hope nobody heard me. Throat very bad. To swallow was torment. And something wrong with an ear. I kept poking at it without relief. Old wax, perhaps, pressing against the drum. Extraordinarily still over the land. And in me, too, all quite still. A coincidence. Why the curses were pouring out of me, I really do not know. No, that's a foolish thing to say. And the lashing about with a stick. What possessed me, mild and weak, to be doing that as I struggled along? Is the stoats now? No. First I just sink down again and disappear in the ferns. Up to my waist they were as I went along. Harsh things, these great ferns. Like starched, very woody, terrible stalks. Take the skin off your legs through your trousers. And the holes they hide. Break your leg if you're not careful. Fall and vanish from view. You could lie there for weeks and no one would hear you. I often thought of that up there in the mountains. No, that is a foolish thing to say. Just went on, my body doing its best without